Hola, hi. So Joanne, with whom I did do the coaching session that you can actually watch on my YouTube channel, I think I called it Want to Be More Dangerous. I will put a link in there. Joanne has a YouTube channel herself, does do wonderful cartoons and reactions and other really interesting things. One of the challenges I set her was to do 30 days of talking about being misunderstood, and I think it's actually very interesting, so check that out. She's nearly halfway through now. And so I don't know when it was, maybe a week ago, Joanne in her frustration said to me, okay, so now I'm challenging you back. Half jokingly, I think, half seriously. So I said to her, okay, let's have it, and challenge me back. So she told me to talk about bravery or being brave and to do at least 3 videos, and including offering my coaching services in there, like a banner or something like this. So this is not one of the 3 videos, but this is a little bit setting up the subject of bravery, I guess, because we had a long conversation about being brave. I have had many people who have reflected back to me that I was being brave, and so I thought it might be interesting also for you to think about, what does it mean to you, being brave? Because I think it can go down so many different routes, isn't it? So many different routes. But obviously the bravery Joanne was talking about, that in terms of what she saw in me, was sharing, my expressions, I guess, like dancing or other things, without seemingly to care so much. But let's move it a little bit out again, because I think it's an interesting subject, what we call brave, Like, for me, what comes, I guess, immediately to mind is doing adventures, the extreme sports, extreme adventures, like going to climbing to the top of Mount Everest, or these extreme things. Like, I never ever would do like bungee jumping or skydiving or stuff like this. I don't think I'll ever get myself to do that. Or what about the whistleblowers that have the courage to really call out on someone with sometimes dire consequences, I guess. So it can go so many ways. And I think bravery is also very individual, and I had to think of my grandma, who did her driver's license very, very late. I think she must have been in her 40s already. And in Germany, you have to do a practical test, but first you have to get through the theoretical one. And she failed several times, and I don't know whether it actually still exists. But when you failed, I think 4 times, you had to do a so-called, can you believe it, idiot's test, And but she didn't give up. She kept on going, and she finally passed. And she only drove in Bamberg. That was a small town. She wouldn't go on long distances, but she did drive. And I can tell you that it was kind of an adventure being with her in a car. And but I think, for me, that was bravery. She didn't give up. She didn't care. Maybe she did care, but she still kept on going, even that people might have thought of her that she was a fool or stupid, but I think for that generation, you know, and at that time, and for my grandma, it was a big thing. And it gave her a little bit of independence. So I think it might be maybe for my generation or for me something not such a big thing, but for her it really mattered. And I think it was a huge act of bravery. So I think that one is really interesting, that it also really depends on where we are coming from, and what means like a big thing for us could not mean a big thing for someone else. You know, for me it's a big thing going on my own to do the MOT or the roadworthiness test here in Portugal. It's a big thing. It's scary somehow, in a different country, in a different language, and it comes with a lot of anxiety for me. So I think we have the broader subject, you know, what the risks are involved with it. You know, there are obviously some risks that come with being brave on the outside, sometimes at least, you know, and on the inside, because we kind of have to, in some way, shape or form, face up to our fears and overcome them. And that's the real act of bravery. And when it comes to being or walking that path of being more of you or more bravely you, we are talking about the context that Brené Brown, for example, talked about a lot, which was that it is very brave to be vulnerable and to show up in your vulnerability. And that means actually you are expressing really how you feel, or you're expressing really your truth or really your opinion. That's vulnerable. And to do it, for example, on a YouTube platform or in a context where maybe you are the only one who has that opinion, this is when it gets vulnerable and scary. So I think there's always kind of a risk involved in bravery, but obviously we can decide how much risk we are willing to take. I mean, there's so many things I could say about this, but the cost of not being brave is, especially in the context of, you know, being bravely us, the cost for it is, if we are not, we usually come into some sort of self-abandonment, which means we lose our vitality. There are certain parts of us that go completely underground. Often the ones we think or have been taught are not really approved of by someone or society, or then eventually by ourselves. And it can lead to emotional burnout, you know, where we just feel like we are only performing in some way, shape or form, and there's no space left to show up as us. And I always really think there are spaces where we can't show up as ourselves, but we need to really learn to create in a way where we can express ourselves fully and not edit ourselves out, and to have a witness, which is like a YouTube platform, for example, a witness that can, if they choose to, see it. Because otherwise, if you're just doing it for yourself and nobody witnesses you being you, I think then there's a little bit a thing missing, especially if we want to bring back some more vitality and feel more connected to ourselves again. So that was my intro for now, even though there were many more things I wanted to think upon, was thinking upon and wanted to share, but I think I leave it at that for now. So back to you. What does mean being brave to you personally? I would love to hear. This is your creative rebel, Anja. And of course, you can book a coaching with me. Take good care. Bye-bye. Ciao.